Welcome to Fade to PB8. In this episode, we'll be coloring in a surfer riding a wave of lava down a volcano. So what I'll do is kind of walk you through kind of my thought process and how I choose my colors and my approach to coloring the entire thing in. I do a lot of mixing of colors together, and I kind of want to explain to you just how I go about doing that and some of my strategies involved, and hopefully it can help you create some good drawings yourself. So I usually like to start with the sky or just the background in general. And for the sky, I'm using red grays. I'm not doing blue, obviously, but I want most of this image to have a hint of red to it. So in the horizon, I have it kind of faded away, a very light horizon, and then it gets a little bit darker as it approaches up the image, and that gives the illusion that we're getting closer to the volcano and it's getting a little bit smokier and smoggier. And I think it's really good to start with the sky because that kind of establishes, it's easy to do the sky, but it also kind of establishes your background colors. And when you add more color, other parts of the drawing become easier because you can kind of compare the colors together. So for example, when I'm doing the mountains next, am I going too light? Am I going too dark? And I can kind of look at the sky and get a good idea. Does it kind of fit into its surroundings? For the clouds, I end up using the same gray color that I use for the sky, but I also mix in a warm gray. And so a lot of times I recommend using common colors, and then each item will share some common colors, but will also have its own unique colors. So the clouds share the same colors as the sky, that lighter sky color, but then they have their own warm gray. So the common colors bring it together, and the unique colors kind of set it apart. But you want to have it come together. You want it to look like it belongs together. So for the smoke, I use a neutral gray, and when you look at the final drawing, actually the one thing I would have done a little bit differently is added a hint of red to the smoke. To kind of show like a reflection of the lava. And I end up just using the neutral grays. I think it looks good, but it would have looked a little bit better if I had added some red. It might have helped bring the image together just a little bit more. But the smoke turned out nicely. I have my light source to the left side of the screen, kind of over my left shoulder. Normally I do the right side because I'm right-handed. But this way I did it because the wave is kind of faced to the left, so it just made a little bit more sense. Now I generally go light to dark. Some people start with the dark marker and work their way light. That's okay, but the problem is if you start dark, once you add that dark marker to the paper, it dries up pretty quickly, and you can't really change it too much once it dries. When you go light to dark, what you're doing is you're adding layer after layer after layer and just gradually getting a little bit darker. And by the time you add those darker markers, you're adding it to wet ink on the paper. And when it's wet, it's just much easier to blend, and it's easier to correct mistakes, and you can lighten it. It's just a lot easier to work with. So I generally recommend going light to dark. So I decided to do the lava before doing the mountains. And I actually do the lava in two stages here. I'll go the lava, then the mountains, and then I'll come back to the lava. And the reason why I wanted to do this is I just wanted to know what the lava was going to look like. Do the mountains need to reflect that red? How brown do they need to be? How red do they need to be? And by doing the lava before the mountains, it kind of helps me pick the colors for the mountain itself. So the order of sections that you do is really important. Again, I normally start with the background. I think that's just the easiest way to go. It also isn't really a focal point. It's not something that's going to grab your attention. So I also like to start with things that are going to be a little bit easier or maybe a little bit more obvious, like how to pick the colors or how to go about doing them. And then I generally work my way to the more complex objects or maybe the more important objects, the things that are going to grab your attention, like the surfer in the middle of the screen. Now the surfer's pretty small here, so he doesn't really grab your attention too much. But if you're much bigger, that's where your attention would be drawn to, and so I would save the surfer for last. So when I'm doing the wave here, I start with my lightest red, and I just kind of gradually work my way to the darker reds. And I'm just getting an idea. I'm not dealing with those black lines that are going through the lava. I'm going to come back later and work with those. But right now we're just establishing some colors just to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So I use a light red for the top of the wave here, the splashy part, and I think it looks pretty nice. You can, I wasn't entirely certain what it was going to look like. I wasn't entirely certain if it was going to look good choosing these colors. I eventually go over it with more of an orangish color to kind of bring it closer together to the lava. But I start light, and I can always change the color if the color is a little bit darker. So I start with a light red, and I throw in a slightly darker orange a little bit later, and I think it ends up turning out nicely. So a lot of strategy involved in doing these drawings is being able to make decisions on the go, being able to work with what you have. Like, so if you make a mistake, how can you work with it? How can you work it back into the image? And also you just want to be able to take like a less risky approach. And having the wet ink on the paper allows you to make changes. It's just less risky. If you grab the wrong marker and you put it down on wet ink, no big deal. It's easy to fix. If you put it down on dry paper, it's going to be a little bit tougher to fix. So that's why we like to put dark markers down on wet paper. So for the mountains here, they share a lot of the same colors as the sky. I wanted that distant mountain to be like the same tone as the sky, the same darkness almost. Maybe a little bit darker because, it's a mountain. But I used some of those same sky colors. I start off with those same grays. And then I come in with these browns afterwards. So I shaded first with the grays, and then I come in with these browns and do a little bit of shading with the browns as well. So you can kind of do like 2 layers of shading, like 1 layer with the grays and then 1 layer with the browns. And you can kind of mix them together, and it creates this like non-monotone color, and it just ends up looking really, really nice. So I'd like to pick 2 palettes sometimes, and I'll kind of jump back and forth between the 2 palettes, working my way to the darker markers. So I'll go lightest marker from palette A, lightest marker from palette B. Second lightest from A, second lightest from B. Third lightest from A, third lightest from C, and so on. Then when you've kind of gone over all the colors that you want to, come back and revisit a light marker. I just call it a base marker, and go over everything, and it just kind of brings everything together. And that will just kind of help get rid of any sort of lines. It'll just make everything fade together nicely. So those light markers kind of become fading tools or blending tools after you've applied some darker markers. So you typically use the light markers actually quite a bit more than the darker markers. And so you'll probably run out of ink a little bit quicker, but that's okay because you can get a pastel set. I know how frustrating it is to run out of ink partway through a drawing, but it happens. For these rocks, I'm using a lot of those same grays that I use for the sky and the mountains in the back. And I ended up going over them with a light red that I had used for the top of the wave. And it just makes it look like the lava is glowing. It gives the idea of kind of like a reflection. But I start with all the shading from the grays, and now here I am applying that red marker. And it's just a very light red, but it really does, it changes the color, and it just makes it look like it fits more into its environment. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the smoke right now. Like, I wish I had added a little bit of a red to that smoke. And if I really wanted to, I could go back and change it right now, even after this video is done. But I'm probably not going to, because I want to get on to the next drawing. So now the lava is completely dry, and I'm going to come back in, and I don't think it has enough shading underneath the top of the wave, so I'm going to darken it. But when I do this, I'm going to go over the entire wave with that lightest red that I'd used before, because I just want to get things wet. It's just so much easier to blend things when it's all wet. And so here you can see I'm working in a darker marker, and I think I even go 1 step darker than this. But I don't like to jump straight to the darkest marker. I like to step my way up. So if you have, let's say you have like 5 different markers, like 1 through 5. 1's the lightest, 5's the darkest. I'll generally start with 1, then I might go to 3, then I might go to 5, and then jump back to 4, and then 2. Or I might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But usually what I'm doing is I'm always starting light, finishing dark, but then I come back to those lighter markers and use them as blending tools. So here you can see I'm adding that darkest red, and just giving it some depth to it, making it look like an actual wave. And now I'm going to let the ink dry a little bit, and I'll use those black lines that kind of show the swirling of the lava. I'm going to go in and just kind of create some different reds, some darker reds in between the lines. You generally, like with coloring images, whenever you see a line, I mean, you want to do something with it. You rarely want to just go over the line and let it be by itself. If I had just let it be like this as it is, it just wouldn't look quite right. But now I'm using those lines to kind of add some darker reds, and it makes the lava look like it's like the surface is three-dimensional instead of just a flat surface, or a curved surface in this case because it's a wave. But yeah, I mean, overall, this is a fairly simple drawing. This is AI generated. I think I just typed in a surfer riding a wave of lava down a volcano, and it actually came out pretty nicely. So AI is a lot of fun to work with if you haven't tried it before. If you're tired of searching through coloring books trying to find the right page, you can actually make the page yourself with some AI tools. So highly recommend trying that out. It's a lot of fun. And then now I'm just doing some finishing touches, adding in all these little specks inside the top of the wave, coloring those in, and that's pretty much it. Last thing I'll add is just keep your markers out. Like once you've picked them out, don't put them away until your drawing's all done. Just keep them in piles separated in case you forget to go over an area or you want to revisit a marker. You don't forget which one that you used. But that's about it. So I got plenty of other videos with lots of similar advice, and I hope you check them out. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.